In this first lesson, we're going to be learning about the C# ternary operator. I know that's a scary title for the first lesson, but it's really not so bad. First of all, we have C#. This is the programming language used in all of Survey Solutions. So you probably already know quite a lot of C# for all of the enabling conditions and validations you've been able to create so far. The ternary operator is a function we'll be learning about today, which is very similar to an if statement. So basically, we're learning to say, if a condition is true, do X. If it's not true, do Y. So let's start by taking a look at the syntax around this ternary operator, and then we'll move on to a couple of tasks, which will make your life a lot easier when programming Survey Solutions. So the ternary operator is similar to an if-else statement. We'll start with its syntax. So it needs to be written like this. First of all, we have a condition in the orange text. Now, a condition is a line of code which can be either true or it can be false. After the condition, we put the question mark character and then our first expression. The first expression is what we would like to happen if this condition is true. Following that, we have a colon character and then another expression. This second expression is what we'd like to happen if the condition is false. So to go through that again, if the condition is true, then expression 1 will be returned into our variable. If the condition is not true, then the second expression will be returned into our variable. Let's take a look through that now with an example that's a bit more practical rather than talking about conditions and expressions. So in this example, we'd like to see if the respondent's age is less than 18 years old, they'll be considered a child. And if not less than 18, they'll be considered an adult. So we're going to use our same syntax, condition expression 1, expression 2. But what I'm going to do is put it out on separate lines, which we'll do in Survey Solutions as well. It makes our conditions much easier to read. So to write a condition like this, we would say something like age less than 18. Now this line can be true. The age can be 10, 15. That's true, it's less than 18. Or it can be false, 25, 55, etc. And the condition is false, it's not less than 18. Next, we will put our question mark. And then our first expression, what we want to happen if the condition is true. So we have this variable here called child, and we'll set child to be true. Next, we have the colon, and we say if age is not less than 18, then our child variable will be set to false. Let's take a look through now our first task that we'll do today within Survey Solutions. So what we want to do is create a variable to help display the other specify values in a multi-select based roster. What does that mean? Well, when we make a roster which is based upon a multi-select question, often the multi-select question will have an other specify value. Now, if we leave it to Survey Solutions, when we pipe in our row code, in this example, we receive the text other specify rather than the actual value which was written in the other specify field. So we'll be using our ternary operator to help us to do that. How are we going to do it? Well, we're going to ask our condition to say that if the row code is the row for other, then in our variable, we want to return the value of that other specify type-in box. If the row code is any other, so not other specify, we're going to return an empty space into that variable. We're working here inside of our first lesson, the ternary operator, and the subsection of other specify in the roster title. What we have set up already is a multi-select question with all the different types of fish which can be raised through aquaculture, including our last value of other specify with code 88. Next, we have the text input where the enumerator can specify the other value. After this, we have a roster called aquaculture species, which is based upon this multi-select question. Inside of the roster, all the questions are using the roster title to bring through the name of the fish so the question text reads nice for the interviewer. Now to see it on screen, here's an example. We've got Nile tilapia selected as well as other specify. and I put in octopus as my other specify value. So you can see it's working quite nicely for the Nile tilapia. We're piping through nice pink writing the fish name, and it's all very good for the interviewer. But when we come to our other specify row, we get only other specify type through. What I'd like to happen is for octopus to appear alongside here, so that our interviewer doesn't have to think back to what was the other species of fish they entered several minutes ago. So to accomplish this, we're going to add a new variable inside of our roster, and it's going to be a string type variable. I'm going to call it other title, and the expression, I'm going to begin with my condition. So my condition is going to be, is the row code equal to 88? It can be true or it can be false. This is asking if we're working in the other specify row or not. Next we have our question mark, and then we're going to have our first expression. So for the first expression, I would like to return this value here. So what we'll put is S5 Q13 underscore other. After this, I go to my colon, and then I want my second expression of what I'd like to return into my string variable if the row code is not equal to 88. And here I want the variable to be blank. I don't want to see anything. So to do that, we put like this, just a solitary space in the variable, and it holds it as blank. So what we'll do is save that. And now what I'm going to do is take this variable and use it to pipe in alongside the roster title. So what we'll do is have a space and then other title like that. And we'll repeat this through all of the other questions. Great, let's compile and see how it's looking. Great, so now that we're compiled, we can see in our other specify roster occurrence, we get other specify and the word octopus comes through, making it a lot nicer for the interviewers. Back in our Nile tilapia, we can see just the short space here, our empty variable. For today's second task, we're going to create a variable to convert some land plot sizes from acres to hectares. This will be a little bit more complicated than our previous task because we're going to nest some if statements inside one another. And we'll be returning a 0 if there's been no unit selection, that is acres or hectares hasn't been selected. So here's an example of how we're going to do it. We'll walk through this piece by piece to make it a little clearer. So first of all, we have condition 1, and if condition 1 is true, then we're going to return here in blue the first expression. If condition 1 is not true, then we'll move across to condition 2. And if condition 2 is true, then expression 2 will be returned. Finally, if neither condition 1 nor condition 2 are true, then expression 3 is going to be returned. So in this task, we have a pretty simple setup already. We have the plot size, which is a numeric, allowing a couple of decimal places, asking what is the size of the land plot. Following this, we have a unit question where the interviewer can select if they've typed that value in as an acre or a hectare variable. On screen, it looks like this. We have our plot size numeric, and then we can select acres or hectares. So what we want to do with this is create a variable here, which is going to hold the value of the plot size always in hectares. We might want this for analysis, or we might want it for some upcoming logic in the rest of our questionnaire. So we'll create a variable, and it's going to be a double because I have decimal places, and I'm going to call it plot size in hectares, and the expression is going to look like this. So my first condition I want to say is unit equal to 1, which is acres. So if unit is equal to 1, then my expression will be to take the plot size and multiply it by 0.404686. This is our conversion factor from acres to hectares. Next, we have the semicolon, but instead of a second expression, I'm now going to have my second condition. So we'll say if unit is equal to 2, question mark, then I'm just going to return the value from plot size by itself, because this is already in hectares. And finally, we're going to have our colons, and then our third expression, which is to simply just give the value of 0. I'm doing this because I don't want to have any assumptions about if it's acres or hectares if this value has not been selected, if it's been left blank by the enumerator. So I'll save this, and what we'll do is create a piece of static text here so that we can test if our variable is in fact working. So I'll say plot size in hectares is, and we'll pipe in our variable creator, plot size underscore hectares. Great, let's compile and see how it's working. Okay, so as we start up, we can see that our plot size variable is starting at 0 because neither of the conditions have been satisfied as true yet. So we'll put in our plot size of 50, and you can notice now that it remains as 0. So had I not used the nesting, it would have assumed that it was hectares and given us a value of 50 hectares, even though this answer was left blank. If I select acres, our first condition is true. It applies the multiplier and brings it down to hectares. If we select hectares, we get simply the 50 hectares value. So there we have our lesson on the ternary operator. I know it's a little bit tricky to get your head around at first, but bear with it because it's a really key piece of code. It has a lot of applications across all of Survey's solutions, and it's key to moving your programming skills from an intermediate level up to an advanced. What I would say is to always test the variable you're trying to create by using the text piping method I showed you in the second lesson today. Good luck and see you next lesson.